Fall is all about cozy comforts, but when you're prioritizing your health, it's easy to feel like you're missing out. With Hero Bread, you can enjoy all your fall favorites because they're made with Hero Bread sliced bread loaves, tortillas, bagels, dinner rolls, and more. Try their all-new Hero Noodles with 12 grams of protein and just 80 calories. You won't believe Hero Bread's options have 0 to 5 grams net carbs and are high fiber from the taste and texture. They've even got small batch drops of indulgent favorites like the popular Hero Croissant. And right now, Hero Bread is offering 10% off your order. Go to hero.co and use code FALL25 at checkout. That's FALL25 at hero.co. All figures are per serving of Hero Bread. Contains 2 to 18 grams of fat per serving. See the product nutrition panels on hero.co for more information.
Why he was having me do a meditation practice. And, anytime I told him I would do something, I always did at least that, if not more. And so, there was a period of time for about 3 or 4 months where I was going down every day and doing my Tai Chi and my meditation first thing in the morning. And, I started getting a little bit discouraged because he wasn't showing me anything else. I didn't see any results. I didn't really understand what was going on. And I'm sure he recognized this frustration because I'd see him.
That was Jeff Patterson. With over 36 years of practicing meditative and martial arts. In this episode, you're going to find out how meditation can transform your life in all areas of activity. Welcome to another episode of the Online Marketing Secrets Podcast. I'm your host, Lopez. So let's get to it.
Sit back and relax and get ready for another exclusive episode of the Online Marketing Secrets Podcast with Lopez.
This episode is brought to you by the best AI software online called Goody. That's Goody. Goody will help you create all content for your blogs, websites, newsletters, articles, ads, and even pictures, LinkedIn posts, Twitter, you name it. All you got to do is go to lopezthesane.com/Goody. That's Goody. And the best part about Goody is absolutely free. That's right. It's free for the first 7 days. You can cancel at any time. Goody will help you create all your contents for your blogs and websites online. And it's 100% absolutely free, full access for the first 7 days. All you got to do, just go to my website. That's lopezthesane.com/Goody. That's Goody. Or just click the link in the show notes and get started today. So where you from?
Portland, Oregon.
Oh, nice. I've been up there once. This was like 20 years ago when I was in the Navy.
Oh, nice.
Back in the day.
Were you a lifer in the Navy, or did you do a short stint?
No, I did 4 years and I got out. Yeah, the ship was in Washington, and Birmingham, and dry docked for about 4 months. So we drove up to Portland.
Well, thank you for your service.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. So how'd you get in this world of martial arts? Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and how'd you get in that world? Is it a family thing, or is always something you wanted to do, or how'd you get started?
As a kid, I always wanted to get into the martial arts. However, I grew up in a single parent family, and we didn't have the financial resources to do that sort of thing. And so when I was in my teens, I got my first real job, and I started paying for classes for myself. And ever since then, it just kind of stuck. And, I ended up, 30 years later running my academy here for the last 30 years. And it's been kind of a fun ride, and as a teenager, I was mostly into more of the combative style of arts. And I was very much into Western boxing, and I used to go to a boxing gym just a few blocks down the street here from my academy. And I had a boxing coach there tell me one day that if I wanted to be really good at boxing, I should start doing meditation and Tai Chi. And at the time, I'm this 19-year-old kid thinking, isn't Tai Chi for old people in the park? How's that going to help me be a better fighter? And I followed his guidance and I started doing it, and it's changed my life in many ways. And through the years, I've had thousands of students come through the academy, and I've heard hundreds of stories on how the meditative arts has positively influenced people's lives. And so that's kind of what's made me so motivated to share this message and teach people how to build an evolving life practice with meditative arts.
So what was it about it at the time that really piqued your interest, that made you want to do more of it?
Well, at first, I didn't understand really why he was having me do a meditation practice. And, anytime I told him I would do something, I always did at least that, if not more. And so, there was a period of time for about 3 or 4 months where I was going down every day and doing my Tai Chi and my meditation first thing in the morning. And, I started getting a little bit discouraged because he wasn't showing me anything else. I didn't see any results. I didn't really understand what was going on. And I'm sure he recognized this frustration because I'd see him 5 or 6 days a week at the gym. And then one day at about the 7 or 8 month mark, I went down to practice in my basement one morning, and I looked up at the clock, and an hour and a half had gone by, and it felt like 15 minutes. And I had this euphoric rush and the sensation that I'd never experienced before. And from that point on, I was just hooked. And, that's when I started kind of adjusting my focus a little bit and really diving into all the areas of the meditative arts and really trying to making it a life passion.
Oh, that's nice, man. When I was growing up, man, I was into basketball. I didn't, it wasn't, I'm from a small town. I think it maybe was one place that taught martial arts when I was growing up. By the time I saw the place, I'm in my mind, hey, I just want to focus on basketball. you can't do everything, man, all at the same time. So, but at the same time, I always looked at martial arts like, hey, that's kind of cool, man. And then they have the competitions every so often, and people would say, hey, man, I'm a black belt, I'm a white belt. I didn't know what any of that stuff meant, but I knew if they made it to the competition, they have to be good.
Well, there's all levels that compete, and one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that a lot of professional athletes these days, basketball players, football players, baseball players, it doesn't matter what the sport, are turning to the meditative arts because it's so valuable to improve our ability to stay present and focus and make that mind-body connection, and works with your timing and your ability to see things from more perspectives. And so you'll find that there's a lot, and it would surprise you in how many, I was actually working on my next book, and I've been doing some research on professional athletes that have come out in public and talked about how they use the meditative arts to improve their performance. And I was literally finding hundreds of names of, well-known athletes. Like, I don't know if you knew this, but when Phil Jackson was coaching the Chicago Bulls and the LA Lakers, he used to have his players practicing meditation and Tai Chi to improve their performance on the court. And here you got, the best basketball players on the planet, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, these guys who are amazing. And they're practicing the meditative arts to help improve their mental game. And so it's a very effective and helpful in many different ways.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But I can see why they would do it, because especially in today's time with sports, because there's so many distractions.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that story. That probably explains why they played so well. and they won all those games.
It definitely helped. Yes.
Yeah. So how did this turn into a situation where, hey, I can start a business with this? I can show other people how to do this. How did that come about?
Well, that same coach who got me into my first meditation and Tai Chi practice, he said something to me back then that stuck with me forever and really changed my mindset. I was the first kid in my whole extended family to go through college. I got 2 degrees in in less than 4 years. I worked really hard in school. All my family thought I was going to go out and get a big job doing something important somewhere. And he used to tell me that, he said, you want to create a life and not make a living. In every job I could think of where I used my college education, it appeared that I would be making a living. And when I thought about teaching the meditative and martial arts, this is something that I had a passion for and something that I did on my own time without even getting paid for it, and I just loved it. And so I followed that path, and for the longest time, it took a while starting up a new business to get it to where it was being successful, especially when you're starting from scratch. And I'd have family members and people saying, when are you going to get a real job? When are you going to do something important? And I just stayed true to my passion and followed it. And I never realized that it could have turned into what it has. I've now here at my academy, I've got over 500 active students. I've got 15 employees. I've got my online business for my meditation programs and my teacher training program. And I've written a few books, and all of that has come from following my passion.
Yeah, man. The story when you said about your family, that's a pretty common thing. Family usually think, hey, man, this is crazy. What are you doing? You're gonna ruin your life. And a couple of years will go by, right? And once they see that, oh, this is actually working for real for them, and then they be like, they might not know exactly what you're doing, but they see the people show up, so I guess it works. So yeah, just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that type of those type of stories to me is always funny in the beginning. What I always tell people: look, everybody, including your friends and some of your family members, they're not going to see what you see. They just don't know, or they just I think they wish you well. They just go to college, get your degree, and take the same path as most people, but everybody can't take the same path. That's just reality.
Right.
Yeah. So how okay, a lot of different styles of fighting, I would say. How did you go? How do you accomplish all of that? That's a lot. That's a lot. How long did it take? That's the first question I want to know.
Well, I've been studying the martial and meditative arts now for 36 years. It took me about 17 years to get my black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, my first degree black belt. And that was partially because when I first started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there was no other black belts in the whole Portland, Vancouver metro area. It was fairly new to the States. It had just become popular with the UFC starting. And so I would travel to California or the East Coast and train with guys and work on trying to learn the art. So it took a while with that. Boxing, I started younger. I also got into Muay Thai around that time. And as I decided to make this direction my career, now instead of doing it as a hobby where I go to a class 3 or 4 hours a week, I'm doing it, 8 to 10 hours a day where I'm teaching it or I'm immersed in it. And so that's where, I really got to put a lot of hours and spend thousands of hours in each one of those areas. And, the meditative arts has always been kind of my foundation. I have a daily ritual I do every morning with the meditative arts, and then use active practices all day, every day, and then teach it as well. And so it's just part of my life at this point.
Gotcha. So let's back up a little bit. Define what meditation is, and why is it important?
So a lot of people get confused when they hear meditation. They think, I've heard so many times people say, I tried meditation, but I just couldn't quiet my mind. It didn't work for me, and somewhere along the way, people got this misguided idea that in order to be successful at meditation, you have to reach this state of nirvana and quiet your mind and be in this peaceful place. And, that couldn't be further from the truth, because I've been very fortunate in the last 36 years to travel around the world many times and train with teachers that are very high level meditation practitioners all over the planet. And I have never once met anybody who doesn't get distracted. Everybody does. We're all human. And the idea with the meditation is that if you sit in a meditation or do a movement practice like Tai Chi or Qigong, and you do this, say, 20 minutes a day, a half an hour a day, and every time you do it, you get 50 distractions that throw you off center. Well, every time you get distracted, you recognize that imbalance. You use your breath, your posture, your movement, if it's a movement practice, to help bring you back to focus. And now you just got 50 repetitions of being in a distracted state to coming back to a balanced state. And if you do that every day, every month, every year, you start to develop this power and this ability to, no matter what happens, help bring yourself back to that balanced present state. And now with the meditative arts, I kind of break them down into 5 directions that you can take the practice. There is the physical or athletic side of the practice that, we already talked about, that a lot of professional athletes will use to help improve their performance. There's the therapeutic side of the practice that's good for your health and longevity and working through injuries. Then there's the medical side of the practice, which all of Chinese medicine is based off of Qigong theory, which is a meditative art. Then there's the philosophical side of the practice, and then also the meditative or spiritual side, which I think is what most people think of when they hear the word meditation. And once you understand that there's these different directions you can take, then we start building and integrating practices that help us follow that path and create an evolving life practice with these meditative arts.
Gotcha. So is there like I guess certain levels of meditation? Because I hear some people say, "Man, I was in deep state," or I hear people throw around a lot of different terms. I don't know, but are there different levels of meditation?
Well, if you're referring to different levels like belts in martial art, no. But there's definitely different realizations that you will have and deeper levels that you can get to in a meditation practice. There's some that involve very deep states of meditation. They're very yin oriented. And then there's some that are more aggressive and kind of more energizing, and so as you start to understand how to use these different strategies, we can kind of write your own prescription, if you will. And with any meditation practice, we have what we call the 5 regulations. And these regulations are kind of the core fundamental principles of any meditation practice, whether it's a sitting practice, a movement practice like Tai Chi or Qigong or yoga or whatever it is. And they are regulating the body, regulating the breath, regulating the mind, regulating the energy, and regulating the spirit. And briefly, I'll kind of touch on what those are so you understand what I'm talking about. So regulating the body is the idea that we're aware of our skeletal alignment and our muscular tension in the body. An example would be, think about a time maybe when you're sitting down at your computer for 3 or 4 hours and your shoulders are rounded forward and you're starting to feel a little lethargic and maybe your neck's getting sore and you're feeling pretty depleted. And then another time when the most important person in your world walks in the room and your body perks up and you feel like you're on top of the world. Well, these 2 different energetic states we're in 100% control of all day, every day. And the choice is, ours as to how we want to be presenting ourselves to the world. And so understanding this first idea of body regulation, this is kind of like the basic idea of that. A little bit deeper in the body regulation would be maintaining some sense of a muscular structure in the body, flexibility, making sure you're eating a healthy diet to keep our energy levels up, making sure you're getting enough sleep. All of these things would be part of that body regulation. Then we have regulating the breath. And regulating the breath is an extremely deep topic and something that if you take on a meditation practice, you'll be doing it for the rest of your life because it's so detailed. And in Qigong, they often refer to defining Qigong as the science of the breath because there's literally hundreds of different breathing strategies. And because of that, we broadly categorize them into yin methods and yang methods. Yin methods are often deeper, more holistic style of meditations. They help with dealing with anxiety or depression or panic attacks or boosting your creativity. There's lots of different ways that we can use this. And then we have the yang side of the breath, which is more aggressive, where it helps energize us and make us more powerful. And an example of a yin breath would be if you ever listen to somebody sleep, you'll see that they naturally inhale longer and exhale shorter. And this is the body's natural way of bringing your conscious mind into your subconscious mind, which is where we are when we're sleeping and dreaming. And then on the flip side of that, on the yang side of the breath, it's kind of like if you ever had to push your car, you pick up something heavy, your natural instinct is to use the exhale and put tension in the exhale and maybe even make it audible. And this will help generate power and expand that energy. And once we learn how to use this strategy of the breath, we can now regulate our physical, mental, and emotional outcomes throughout the day. And in Chinese philosophy, they call this balancing the kan and li, or the water and fire. And, everybody goes through the day with emotional ups and downs. Some people are like a roller coaster, others may be a little more balanced. But when you start noticing yourself get excited, we can use the yin side of the breath to help bring us back down. When we start feeling depleted, we use the yang side to help bring us up. And now we can maintain a more balanced state throughout the day. Then the next regulation is regulating the mind. And regulating the mind is an extremely deep topic. And again, something we'll work with for here on out. And an idea we already kind of touched on when you're meditating is just being aware of those imbalances and bringing yourself back to focus. There's this story that I really enjoy about these two old monks, and they're walking down this dirt road after a huge rainstorm, and they come up to this big mud puddle, and on the other side of the puddle is this beautiful little girl. She's standing there in a white dress and she's crying. And the older monk, he yells across the puddle and says, "Is everything okay? Can we help you?" And she says, "I need to be somewhere, but if I walk across this puddle, I'm going to get my dress all dirty." So he walks across the puddle, picks her up, puts her on his back, takes her to the other side, sets her down, and she's off on her way. Well, him and the younger monk are walking 2 miles down the road, and finally the younger monk is just furious, and he says, "We're not supposed to touch girls, but yet you did back there at the puddle." And he looks down at him and says, "You're still thinking about that girl? I left her back there at the puddle." And how many times in life do we have to get 2 miles down the muddy road before we realize, dude, we got to let this go? And so this idea of being aware of recognizing these imbalances and regulating our minds is very powerful. And then the next regulation is regulating the energy. And this is a very deep topic, something that we could literally talk for hours about. But a basic idea of it is, once you've reached a competent level in regulating the body, the breath, and the mind, you now have the tools to circulate the energy in the body, lead it inward, and extend it outward to get different outcomes. And then the last and final regulation, regulating the spirit, is a very profound idea, and it's something that meditation masters will spend their entire life's journey working towards that ultimate stage of enlightenment. But as you can see, by cultivating these underlying principles of the meditative arts, it can affect everything we do in life. And that's what makes meditation so powerful, is it improves our awareness and helps fine tune pretty much anything you'll do in life.
Yeah, man, it's fantastic. I could go on for days talking about this. But is there a certain amount of time people should meditate, or is it just based on the person? What do you think?
Yeah, I always tell new people, you want to have the three pillars of meditation, which are ritual practices, active practices, and philosophical practices. A ritual practice, I think a good place to start for somebody is to meditate for 20 minutes a day. And that's when you're shutting your phone off. You're not looking at a screen. You're not having any other distractions around. And, it's not like you need to retire and go meditate in a cave for the rest of your life. But if you just did 20 minutes a day, you could see a lot of results from that if you're consistent with it. Then we have active practices that you can integrate throughout the day that help you, and they can be done in as little as 60 seconds or 2 minutes. And they help you kind of stay in that present mindset, because it seems kind of silly to think that I'll go meditate every day and feel at peace, and then the whole rest of the day you're stressed out and scattered. And doing these active practices help us stay in that focused place and really enhance that ability to stay aware throughout of our daily activities. And then lastly, we have the philosophical practices, and these can be used in an active-based practice as well as a ritual-based practice. And through these three ways of doing the practice, if you stay consistent with that, you can really see a lot of benefits from the meditative arts.
Great, man. So let's talk about your book, The Yielding Warrior. Well, first off, what made you want to write a book, man? Because it's a lot of work, man.
So this is my third book, and yes, it is a lot of work. Yielding is a concept in the meditative and martial arts that I've always been very passionate about, and I've seen a lot of value there. In my book, The Yielding Warrior, I break down 3 pillars of yielding. There's physical yielding, mental yielding, and emotional yielding. And physical yielding is the idea that I push you, you push me, whoever's the bigger, stronger person with the most leverage eventually is going to push the other person over. But with yielding, instead of us trying to see who the bigger meathead is, when you push me, I get out of the way of that force, and now I can respond with less effort. Now, it's obvious how this is beneficial in athletics, because you're all often going to come up against athletes who are bigger, stronger, and faster than you. And if you don't know how to deal with this aggressive nature and force, you're going to end up taking the back seat many times. And so understanding how to strategically deal with this is very powerful in athletics. Now, in order to be good at physical yielding, a lot of things have to come into play. You need to be well rooted. The lower part of your body needs to be strong and flexible so you can change your central equilibrium without getting tight. The body has to be relaxed, the breath has to be calm, and the mind has to be present. Now, while it may be a lifetime journey to really master these skills, once you start a meditation practice, even from day one, you start developing this higher level of awareness and seeing these things inside yourself. And because of this, you also start seeing these things more clearly in other people. And this is where we're moving into what I call mental yielding. And this is where it starts getting very interesting, because, if you and I are having a conversation and I say something that unsettles you and I pick up on it right from that first sign of imbalance, it's a lot easier to adjust the conversation and keep us in a happy place than if I'm not paying attention to that. And pretty soon I'm so far off track, you want to slap me upside the head. And so learning how to use yielding in all of our interactions is extremely powerful. And, one, we're being more considerate, which is something that we could all do more of. And 2, it allows us to be strategic and guide conversations to a positive outcome with the least amount of resistance. And this is beneficial in your relationships and business and sales and negotiations. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can apply this concept. And then lastly, we have what we call emotional yielding. And emotional yielding is very much like mental yielding, but with our own interpersonal conflicts. So you think about oftentimes something happens to us, we'll respond and we'll go down this path. And we might get an hour, a day, a week down that road and realize maybe that wasn't the best choice. But with yielding, if we could have recognized that from the moment it happened and stayed present and not let our emotions get involved, a lot of times we can make a more educated decision that's going to cause us a lot less heartache on the other side. And I've been explaining this concept of yielding now for many years. I've been running my academy for 30 years now. And one of the most common things I'll hear people say is, yielding makes a lot of sense. In fact, I do that all the time. Well, I would agree in that I think everybody does some degree of yielding all the time. However, it's kind of like if you or I were to walk into a crime scene with a detective who's been on the job for 30 years, I guarantee you that person would see things about the series of events and the timeline that I know at least I would have no clue of. And the meditative arts helps us see things inside of ourselves and inside of other people that I truly believe most people will go through life and never have any clue of if they don't have this kind of a practice in their life.
Wonderful. And speaking of the book, you're giving free copies away. Anyone that orders, all you got to do is pay for shipping. So where would people go to get that?
Go to theyieldingwarrior.com/book and you can order a copy there. And as well on that same site, you can check out our online programs, our teacher training program. Right now we're running a 2-week trial. So if you want to check it out and see how to start creating an evolving life practice with the meditative arts, you can look into that there. Or if you run a yoga studio or a martial arts studio, or you're a life coach and you want to learn how to hand down these arts and build up another pillar in your business, you can check out the teacher training program. Here at my academy, we have 4 different adult programs. Our meditation program, our Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program, our striking program, and our kids program. And right now, our meditation program alone is generating $40,000 a month. And it's something that we only offer 6 classes a week. It's a very strong pillar for a very little amount of work needed to put into it. And it's something where if you have an academy already or a yoga studio, you're targeting an audience that's in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. But by integrating a meditation program, now you can start hitting those 50s, 60s, 70s, even some 80s that come in, and you're getting a market that's less saturated. People aren't marketing to them for boxing because they know that they're not going to get a lot of those clients. And so here you can get this traffic coming into your studio for a lot less money.
There you have it. I highly recommend everybody go get the book. I'm gonna get a copy too. I'm not gonna tell you anything to do that I'm not gonna do. So share this episode. All links will be found in the show notes. Until next time, we are out. Peace.